Here's something most women with thinning hair don't realize. The haircut you're wearing right now might actually be making your hair look thinner than it is. If you've ever stood in front of the mirror looking at your thinning hair and thought, I just don't know what to do with this anymore, I want you to know something. You're not alone in feeling that way. And here's what makes it harder. You feel like your only options are to compromise on style or pretend you have more hair than you actually do. Neither of those feels good. But here's what I've learned. The right haircut doesn't hide thinning hair. It works with it. It celebrates it. Actually. And in the next 12 minutes, I'm going to show you 4 cuts that can shift you from hiding to feeling confident again. These aren't complicated, they're not expensive, but they work. But before I show you those cuts, we need to talk about why your current style isn't working anymore. So let's talk about what's really happening here. Thinning after 60 isn't a failure. It's not something you did wrong. It's just normal hair biology. Your hair density changed. That's simply what happens. But here's the problem with most traditional styling advice. When stylists say things like, just add layers or get lots of texture, they're assuming you still have the hair density to support those techniques. And for most women with thinning hair, you just don't anymore. But it's not really about the hair itself, is it? You know the old style doesn't work, but the idea of changing it feels risky. What if it looks worse? What if people think you're trying too hard? What if they notice that you changed something, so you stay where you are? You keep wearing a style that doesn't quite feel like you anymore. And every time you catch your reflection, that feeling gets reinforced. You're hiding. And that hiding costs you something real. Every single day. It shows up in how you feel in photos, in how present you are in conversations, in how much permission you give yourself to just take up space and be seen. You've been choosing to be smaller because you thought that was the only option left. But here's what changes everything. Thinning hair isn't asking you to compromise on style. It's asking you to change your strategy. And strategy means this. It means using techniques like point cutting, where scissors are held perpendicular to the hair shaft and cut inward to create texture instead of blunt lines. That delicate texture becomes your advantage. Because fine hair doesn't move in clumps, it moves independently, which means you get this dynamic, elegant movement instead of flat, lifeless hair. This isn't a flaw you need to hide. This is actually your feature. So here's how we work with that texture in 4 different ways. 4 cuts, 4 strategies. Each one works with your hair, not against it. You're not compromising anymore. You're amplifying what you already have. Now, here's what these 4 women I'm about to show you discovered. When you stop trying to hide and start styling with authenticity, something shifts inside you. You stop worrying so much about what others think. You start focusing on how you feel. And that confidence? That's the real transformation. One woman I spoke with told me she spent 10 years hiding her hair, wore it up every single day, never changed the style. She just kept hoping it would somehow look different. The day she got this cut, her first thought wasn't, do I look younger? It was, I feel like myself again. Like she finally gave herself permission to be who she actually is. You've spent 50, 60, maybe 70 years becoming who you are. You know who you are. You know what you want. Your hairstyle should reflect that woman, the woman you've become. Not some 30-year-old version you're trying to preserve. So I want to give you permission right now. Permission to style authentically, to own who you are right now, in this season of your life. And that permission doesn't need to come from anyone but you. Alright, let's get into it. Here's cut number 1. Cut number 1 is the textured pixie. It's short, intentional, and surprisingly elegant. This cut solves one of the most common problems, which is visible crown thinning. Point cutting removes weight while keeping dimension. For thinning hair, this prevents that stringy look that short hair usually gets. Watch how the scissors are held perpendicular to the hair shaft, cutting inward to create texture instead of a blunt line. See that movement? Each strand moves independently, creating this dynamic, graceful quality. You're not hiding anymore. You're owning it. That's the difference point cutting makes. One woman told me she was terrified of going this short. She thought it would make her look older. But the opposite happened. She went from hiding under her hat to constantly touching her hair because she actually likes how it looks now. So why does the pixie work so well for thinning hair? The short length emphasizes what's actually there. You're not pretending. The texture creates movement, which thin hair really needs. And psychologically, you shift from hiding to owning your look. That's the real benefit. That's why this cut can change everything. Now, if short hair isn't for you, don't worry. This next cut gives you the same confidence without going short. Cut number 2 is the strategic bob. This one is for women who love their length but hate how flat it looks. Internal layers create movement without removing length. Let me show you the difference. Same woman. Same thinning hair. Completely different result. The secret is internal layers. These are layers that sit inside the hair structure. They don't change the outer shape at all. The bob still looks polished and professional. But inside, it breathes. You can style this 2 ways. Method 1 is polished. Blow dry, smooth. Tuck the ends inward. Perfect for work. Method 2 is casual. Same cut, just tousled and piecey. Perfect for every day. One woman told me she was terrified of cutting her long hair. She thought that meant giving up. But after getting this cut, she said it gave her everything she wanted. Short hair movement, without actually losing the length she loves. The strategic bob lets you keep your length and gain your confidence. Here's why it works. Internal layers remove weight from underneath while keeping visible length. The weight is redistributed, not removed. Your hair moves up and out from the scalp, creating the appearance of volume without requiring more hair density. And professionally, the outside shape stays intact. That's why this cut bridges the gap between I want short hair movement and I'm not ready to cut it short. Now, if you want even more styling versatility, this next cut is going to be your favorite. Cut number 3 is face framing choppy layers. This is the sweet spot between length and movement. Face framing is universally flattering, and the choppy texture prevents that stringy look. Choppy texture actually serves double duty here. It prevents stringiness and creates movement at the same time. The layers move independently, making your hair look fuller and more textured. And face framing highlights your features. You're not hiding behind long, thin hair anymore. You're showing your face with confidence. You can style this 3 different ways. Variation 1 is tousled and casual. Blow dry with your fingers. Add some texturizing spray. This is your best everyday look. Variation 2 is sleek and side-swept. Same cut, just blow-dried smooth. Tuck one side back, perfect for dinner out. Variation 3 is half-up. Pull the top section back, keeps the layers visible. Works great for professional settings. Another woman shared with me that this cut made her feel feminine again. She said she wasn't compromising on style anymore. She was owning a look that actually reflects who she is right now, different than anything she'd done in 20 years. And that felt perfect. So, choppy layers give you texture without stringiness. Face framing is universally flattering, and versatility builds confidence. This cut says, I'm not fighting my hair, I'm working with it. And finally, if you're absolutely not ready to give up your length, I've got you covered. Cut number 4 is shoulder length with strategic taper. This one is for those of you who aren't ready for short hair yet, but you want your hair to feel shorter, lighter, more manageable. Underlayer tapering removes weight from underneath while keeping the length you want. Your ends stay rounded and full instead of stringy and defeated. With the right technique, this length is actually more stylish than long, thin, flat hair. You have 2 styling options. Option 1 is gentle waves. This creates the appearance of volume. It softens fine hair. And it's the most flattering option for this length. Option 2 is straight but intentional. It shows your face, it's professional, and sometimes it's the most elegant choice. One 75-year-old woman told me her family kept telling her to cut it short. But with the right technique, this length and this style are actually more fashionable than what she had before. She said she's not compromising, she's leveling up, and at 75 that feels like a gift. That's what these 4 cuts offer you. Options, not compromises. Every length, every preference. Every woman gets to choose. Now, here's the critical part: making sure your stylist actually understands what you need. There are 4 techniques you should ask about. First is point cutting. That's when scissors are held perpendicular to the hair shaft, cutting inward to create textured, light ends instead of blunt lines. Second is texturizing. That's removing weight while keeping length. Third is internal layers. These are layers that sit inside the hair structure, creating volume without changing the outer shape. And fourth is underlayer taper. That's shortening underneath to reduce weight at the ends. When you book your appointment, bring these 3 questions. First, do you work with thinning hair regularly? Second, how do you prevent the stringy look? And third, can you show me examples of your work with thinning hair clients? And here are some red flags to watch out for. If they say, just add layers without discussing technique, that's a red flag. If they promise to make it look thick, that's misleading. And if they don't ask about your specific thinning pattern, find someone else. Here's what I want you to know. These cuts aren't about fighting your thinning hair, they're about honoring it. Honoring the season of life you're in. Honoring the confidence you've built over 50, 60, 70 years. And dressing that confidence authentically. Not apologetically. Authentically. Your permission to try something new doesn't need to come from anyone but you. So here's what I want you to do today. First, save one of these 4 cuts to your phone. Then, book an appointment with a stylist who specializes in thinning hair. When you go, show them this video, and have the conversation using the terminology we just practiced. That's it. You don't need permission from anyone else. Here's what I care about most. You're not alone in this. The women in this video weren't models. They were women just like you, frustrated, but ready to own their style. So here's what I'd love for you to do. Comment below and tell me which cut resonates with you. Or, tell your story. How has thinning hair affected your confidence? And if you want the step-by-step styling guide for each of these cuts, make sure to subscribe. Part 2 is coming next week, with at-home styling tips you can actually use. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.